Hey, GLP-1 plus size community. Before we jump into the podcast, please take the time to leave us a 5-star review on whatever audio platform you're listening to the podcast on. Share your story and how the podcast has helped you. This will help us get referred up in the audio platform so that we can reach more people that need our help, our support, and guidance from our doctors. Help us get loud and change things.
Are you interested in understanding GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, wegovy, or Mounjaro? Then join us on the Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, the groundbreaking podcast helping people change their lives one episode at a time. The Plus Sides podcast is a disruptor. We're breaking down barriers, smashing stereotypes, and sharing inspiring stories that'll leave you feeling informed and empowered. Join us every week to learn from doctors who are specialists around GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, wegovy, and Mounjaro. They'll provide you with science and facts to validate these incredible stories. But that's not all. We'll also bring you the voices of the GLP-1 Mounjaro TikTok community, real people who face the challenges of obesity-related diseases and disorders and discovered the incredible plus sides of GLP-1 medications. Our episodes are filled with heartwarming stories, laughter, and moments of triumph. You'll connect with our amazing community members who are reclaiming their health and experiencing their fullest lives. Are you ready to embark on a journey of discovery and empowerment? Tune in to the Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, and together we'll change the narrative around obesity and end the stigma. Subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform and join our incredible community. Let's celebrate the plus sides of life together because every story deserves to be heard. Every life deserves to shine, and everyone deserves access to expert knowledge and medication. The Plus Sides Podcast. You're not alone. It's not your fault.
Hey everyone, before we dive in, I really want to share something personal with you. About, I want to say like 8 to 10 months ago, after losing 100 pounds on GLP-1s and keeping it off for a long time, I started regaining out of nowhere, and I was terrified. But I also started having hot flashes and bouts of crying and snacky cravings and waking up at 3 a.m. unable to go back to sleep. It turns out I was in perimenopause, so I started hormone replacement therapy, which is also called HRT, through a telehealth called Winona that specializes in this, and it changed everything. And now I'm sleeping better, and my hot flashes are all but gone, thank God, and I feel like myself again. And it turns out that you can actually start perimenopause as early as 35, and well, I'm 46 and she's here. HRT has really come a long way and there's just no need to suffer anymore. So if you're like this and you're in the same boat, you can check out buywinona.com and you can use the link in our link tree to save some money.
Want the fastest working GLP-1? For half the price, Ro now offers FDA-approved weight loss injections cheaper. With results you can see faster. Lose 15% of your weight with the formula from Eli Lilly that hits not one, but 2 hormones to curb hunger and nausea. Weight loss faster, confidence higher, price cheaper. See if you qualify at ro.co/TV.
True.
Yeah. I think another important thing that you asked us, why do we think this stigma about obesity exists? And I guess I would say even more important than why it exists is talking about the fact that stigma and shame don't work. So it doesn't matter so much why someone might have an attitude in their head that, let's say it's a healthcare provider who thinks they need to just, push their patient a little harder and make them feel bad about the fact that they have obesity so that they'll work harder. It doesn't matter so much why that person has that attitude. At this point in time, what's important is moving forward, helping that person recognize all the data, all the studies, not just in obesity, show that stigma, shame do not work to motivate behavior. That is like, it's a great body of evidence to say that when you want to help people change their behavior, things like compassion, self-acceptance, help to empower people to be able to get up every day and do the work it takes to do something different from what their body is telling them to do. As Dr. Durander said, they basically have to consume fewer calories than their body is telling them to consume. That is not an easy thing to do day in and day out. Some of our newer medications on the market are helping people, and they need access to those medications to make it easier. But people still have to not eat as much as their body is telling them to eat. They still have to work every day at it. Making someone feel ashamed about the way their body is does not help that process.
Yeah.
We need to help people feel supported and empowered with a compassionate approach that uses the best science that we have available today to help them be successful and accept the success that they get. It could be, 5% of their body weight, and they may still have a higher body weight at that point. But that 5% of weight loss has a huge positive benefit on their health.
Oh, yeah.
Not just their metabolic health, but how they feel in their body, how much pressure is on their joints, their musculoskeletal system.
Yeah.
There's not an ideal aesthetic body type we're going for here. This is about what's healthiest for the person. And that to reach that healthier weight, I say healthier, and to maintain a healthier weight, we need to not shame people. We know shame doesn't work. I mean, how much have we changed child rearing practices over generations? Because we know now it's not helpful to shame a child. You need to love a child. And, as humans, we respond much better to compassion and support than we do to shame and stigma. So that's the reason, not so much why is the stigma there? I mean, we could probably spend a whole other show on just that. But why is it important? Yes. But why is it important that we not keep buying into that cultural norm of stigmatizing people who struggle with their weight and instead supporting them?
I think like if we could think about things more as a collective, if we could think about the fact, like if people could, I'm just going to say it, crawl out of their ass, and they could just think about the fact that having a thriving like society, right, that it's the healthiest us that we can be, where we're working and we're stimulating the economy, right, and all of these different things is the best for everyone. And it does not matter if you are giving yourself a shot or taking a medication, because they ain't none of your business. What matters is like making sure that everybody has access to the best care. And I think that what I've sort of learned by going through this, it's hard for me to hear about the virus thing. Like every time I hear like more about the different kinds of things that cause this, the different kinds of things that contribute it. And I think about suffering my whole life. And I would tell you, like, in all fairness, I'm just going to say it. Like, I am a middle-class white woman. And I was raised that way. I have been blessed in so many ways. I have an amazing family. They are very kind, supportive, and wonderful in all the things. So when I say that I've suffered, it's because I did it to myself. Because I took all of this shame and blame that I was getting from other people and I put it on myself. And I continued to try to be amazing at my career. And I have everything. Like, Kat's one of my best friends. Like, I have amazing friends. I have a family. I have a home. I have a car. I have a job and a career. I have all these different things, but it never seemed like enough because I couldn't control my food. And I'm like, what's wrong with me? How pathetic am I? And that language, right? I talked to myself like that my entire life until I got on these medicines. And then when the silence happened for me, there was so much fear in that silence, but so much power in that silence, because I was like, I'm in control now. What am I going to do with it? And I think that I want people to understand that, especially when they do get access to these treatments, is there's much work to be done, because that has been the case. And mine is minimal in terms of suffering, I think, than many other people have experienced, especially like with their family. Right. And how they were treated in their family or othered in their family. And this keeps continuing on and on over generations. And I do think we have to find a way to make it stop. So I'm hoping shows like this and conversations like this will help empower other people at the Thanksgiving dinner table when they say, you don't need that. You know what I mean? Shut up. You don't know what I need. You know what I mean? I hope that more people will understand like the power of this and understand that it isn't about being skinny. Right. And it is like what you're saying. And I think that too, like there's a piece of this in terms of we've kind of touched on it a little bit when Dr. Duranda was talking about like 60 years ago. You will hear people all the time on social media that will say, if you look at pictures of people in the 50s and 60s, we didn't have obesity, or we had hardly any obesity. And the people that were in the magazines, they didn't have obesity, which I like, well, yeah, they're not going to put those people on the magazine, A. But B, also, like, it has continued to get worse, right? And the BMI, And the escalation, if we're thinking about that just alone, it has gotten worse, right? I think it's important to understand we're here. And we had seen, I guess, about a year ago, one of the doctors in our community, who's an obesity specialist, was talking about how over the past couple of years, it's stopped increasing, right? This BMI progression, and the amount like of obesity, like if we're looking at it from as a whole. And I should know the name of the study, and I'm sorry that I don't. But she was sort of talking about like, and what is the correlation? Well, we know there's more education and more availability of GLP-1 medications, right? There's more options available than there were a couple of years ago, right? So is that a contributing factor? So I guess what I'm wondering is, are we all at the point with this that is obesity even preventable, or was it ever preventable? Like, I don't even know. And I would love to know from like a scientific perspective, because I know that as we have children, so like my son is very lean, very tall, but honestly, he kind of eats like a trash panda. And it's a struggle for me because I all my stuff comes back and I'm like, is this something I can prevent? Can I prevent? How do I not food shame him? Like, how do I not do all these different things that I'm not? Yeah. But like, I think about those things, and I know that our listeners think about their children and their children's children as well. So is there anything we can do?
You actually made 3 different points. And they were outstanding points. So it sounds like one question, but there are
It's many
in my mind that I would just respond to. And of course,
that would be great. Yes.
So one is, it's fantastic that you describe your own situation. That I'm sure it helps other people also to understand that they are not alone in this kind of situation, the way you described, that you blamed yourself for eating. But I want to respond to that first. Our hunger and our feeling of fullness is not magic, is not willpower. It is driven by our biology. We have hormones for hunger, and we have hormones for feeling full, or they're called satiety hormones. If one of the hormones for making you feel hungry is called ghrelin, GHRELIN, and the fullness hormones, there is one GLP-1, and another one is PYY. So these are just some of the hormones that control the hunger and fullness business in our body. So although it looks like you are eating, you are in control. You have an executive center, which is in the brain, that you can overrule and eat more after you're full, or not eat when you're hungry. That is possible. Generally speaking, your body is controlled by hunger, and fullness is controlled by this biology. And some people who are struggling with obesity have excess of the hunger stimulus, or slow onset of fullness stimulus. So those things can happen. So, but people will feel that it's me who's making those decisions. Really, your biology is driving those decisions. That is number one. Second is what you mentioned about increase in prevalence of obesity worldwide over the years. Is it true? Absolutely. It is true. And that is one thing that we are all puzzled about, that we cannot put our finger to. Why there is increased obesity. Almost every single country in the world reports increased prevalence of obesity. Whether you have fast food restaurant or not, doesn't matter. But what that has done generally in the field is people come up with their own favorite theory that, it's all because of sugar. Yeah. It's all because of ultra processed food. It's all because of sugary drinks. You take it and you put it on this and say, well, of course, look, it is because of this. So there is a British poem from 17th century, blind men and the elephant. So 4 blind men go to see, quote unquote, see an elephant. They feel the elephant and they're coming back. And this is called 4 Blind Men of Hindustan. That is the name of the poem, British poem. And then they discuss that, now I understand. The elephant is like a big wall. The other guy says, no, elephant is like a pole. No, elephant is like a rope. So the poem ends that they were all in the right and all in the wrong, because they are only looking at it from their perspective, whereas elephant is all that and more. So, but bottom line is, today we don't know exactly why obesity has increased over the recent years. Uh, and not one theory is sufficient to explain all the changes. The third question was your question. Actually, the statement was your question is about preventing obesity.
Yes.
So the way Dr. Vigam explained, obesity is something that is intrinsic. The defect that you have inside you is obesity. There are contributors in environment that mixed with the defect will express obesity. So if the defect is inside, just to give an example, would be, let's say if one has thyroid deficiency, thyroid hormone deficiency, and that is going to lead to weight gain. How do you prevent? How do you prevent thyroid hormone deficiency? You can treat thyroid hormone deficiency once it is expressed. How do you prevent it? Same way, your defect or melanocortin 4 receptor deficiency. How do you prevent that deficiency? We cannot today. We can treat its consequences. So obesity, the way we look at it, the way Dr. Vigam described obesity, that obesity cannot be prevented. What we can prevent possibly is its expression. The obesity, the defect is in you, but we can try to control its expression. Same like diabetes. Once you get diabetes, you can't prevent diabetes.
Right.
Or make diabetes go away, rather. But you can control blood sugar levels. Similar.
Yeah. That's a great way to think about it. Yeah. Cause it's like, I have people ask all the time, like, are you ever going to get off GLP-1s and these kind of, and the answer is I'd really like to, but I'm pretty sure this isn't a cure for my disease. I think it's just a treatment, So I feel like if we look at GLP-1s as we would treat any other illness, then, but I mean, I know that I would love that. Like, I would love if I didn't need this, you know what I'm saying? But I think that it seems counterintuitive to say, let me get you to a healthy state and now let me take you off these. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't seem sense to me. Like, but that is a very common, and honestly, it's bullshit, I think. And also I'm hearing companies like having whole mantras around it, back to elephant story, right? Where they're like, we can get people off these meds. We can get people off these meds. And I think that like most of us would love to not have to give ourselves a shot forever or pay $500 a month or $1,000 a month or whatever it's been. But ultimately, it seems like you said, what we have right now, like what's available right now in terms of the latest science is treatment. No?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any medication in our healthcare system right now doesn't work if you don't take it.
Yeah. So true.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
any treatment, not only medication.
Yeah.
No treatment works. You need to take it.
That's right.
So true. Yeah. My dad has what's called chronic leukemia. He has a specific kind. And he just recently, this is very squirrely, but I swear I have a point. And he's been on chemotherapy pill forever. Like, and it was hard to be able to find a way to afford it. And then we had to use like Mark Cuban's pharmacy and like all these different things to be able to find a way for him to be on it. Because financially, maybe he just wasn't as worthy as others. You know what I'm saying? And so that's been very trying for us. But recently, I think it's probably because he has diabetes and kidneys issues, genetic, and all these different things. The doctor was like, we're going to take you off of it for a while and see how things go. But we know that based on his numbers, right, that wasn't a cure, right? We know it's like chronic, but the doctor's like, let's just see. And I think it's to kind of give his kidneys and everything sort of a break, because it's hard to be on that medicine. But my dad was like listening to the doctor and when he came to tell us about it, he said, I can be off in medicine until June. And like that, it's still barely detectable. But it's hard. It was hard for me knowing about this, right? To be like, I don't think this is it, Dad, because I don't want to rain on his parade. You know what I mean? But it's like, ultimately when you have this chronic condition, because we didn't keep it from progressing, like you were talking about earlier, I just feel like we're not looking at it this way. And I will, it's such a squirrel, but I will tell you my really big concern right now, like when we're talking about the complexity of this, And the only reason we understand it at all is because we have people like you on our show to teach us. But what I'm concerned about is PCPs that are about to prescribe people who are 65 and older GLP-1 medications in April, and where the hell they're going to go to understand any of this? Well, me, or maybe they'll come here. But you know what I mean? Like, that's my concern. There's going to be so many people that do not have, we don't think we have the infrastructure to support it, because I don't think enough PCPs understand this, you know?
That's why we've been working really hard on making more accessible training for existing PCPs. We also need to there's a lot of people in the field working on adding obesity medicine to medical schools. We need to keep going with that. But we've got hundreds of thousands of PCPs in this country that have never had any training in obesity medicine
Or nutrition.
and don't have any training in nutrition. And nutrition and obesity are not completely overlapping.
Right.
But nutrition is part of any obesity treatment.
Yeah.
And obesity medicine, there's a lot to it that does not get taught in medical school. So Dr. Drander and I have trained a lot of PCPs. We've developed a training program with input from those PCPs. They asked us for the training, and we designed it to meet their requirements, their needs, based on their perspective of what it was like to deal with their patients. But even that, a training program, and then being able to remember that training and take it right into your clinic, it's hard.
For sure.
And the average PCP cannot go take off 2 to 3 years to do an obesity fellowship program.
Yeah.
We have some great fellowship programs.
They could binge our podcast.
Yes.
And learn from that.
We have some great fellowship training programs that have been developed over the years.
Good.
The Obesity Society has been working on that in partnership with some industry partners who have dedicated a lot of funding to help us get those fellowship training programs going. That's great. Those are going to be specialists, expertly trained, and they're going to be especially well suited to treat complex cases of obesity. But we need every person with obesity who walks into their primary care doctor's office to be met with compassion and understanding that this is not their fault, or they will never even make it to the specialist. And much of the initial steps of treatment can start in the PCP's office. So that's why we've developed this training program. And when the providers told us it's just hard for me to remember everything, we built some software tools to help them with that. So there are solutions out there. This is part of what people in the obesity field are doing, these research approaches to develop better tools to make sure the best science is getting into the hands of the providers and the patients who need the help. And so our goal is to get that more widely disseminated so that more providers have access and can help more patients. We just don't have enough obesity medicine specialists in the country to treat every person with excess body weight. But we still need the specialists. We just need that first step in primary care to happen in an informed way.
They really
and
are.
So that's part of what we're working on.
I think that's wonderful you're doing that, because I am so concerned about it. Because here I am going to Capitol Hill and trying to get working with the Coalition to get TRO approved and all these different things. And then all of a sudden we hear it's going to happen. And I'm like, oh shit. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
How are they going to know? And what are they going to do? Because right. Like, I mean, it's like, there's going to be like all this availability. And I'm telling you, I was here when all these people got availability on the internet, and we had no idea what was going on. Like, we were all figuring it out together.
Yeah.
And I still think that's an issue. So I'm hoping that there's a way, because I think that's going to be the first line of defense. And I think like I mentioned earlier, that trust is very broken, you know? So I don't really, I'm telling you, even knowing the views that I know, even like, and from you guys, right? Really, I still will go to my community with a question about this before I will come to you. It's my go-to is I'm going to go to my people before I'm going to go. And I know better, but I don't. And so I'm very concerned about that. So I'm really excited that you guys are getting in there and working with them and offering these programs, because I think like obesity is put like really the way it is, it could take us out. Like the things that it leads to, it can completely obliterate our system that we already are struggling trying to stand up, especially with Medicaid. So it's like, if we don't find a way to, then they are treating it, right? They're treating it on the back half, like my dad. They're treating his cancer. You're going to, dialysis, like all these different things. They're not
More
treating
expensive to wait and
right,
treat.
more expensive. And I think it's like they sort of think, and I do feel better about where things are headed for this from this perspective that when I hear our leaders talk, like they do seem to understand how dire this is. Like, and how if we treat it earlier, we will be in a much better thriving society. And I do not feel that way a year ago.
Quick pause here. I've had moments on my GLP-1 journey where insurance changes or rising costs forced me to look for a new provider. And honestly, that process can feel very overwhelming. But that's why the Plus Sides podcast is partnered with GLP Winner to give our subscribers a resource to help them make that decision easier. GLP Winner is a comparison platform that lets you explore telehealth providers in all 50 states, whether you're looking for brand name medications or compounded options. You can see pricing up front, read reviews, and get a clear picture of which provider might align best with your needs. Check it out today at glpwinner.com/plus sides. That's glpwinner.com/plus sides. Don't forget the Z. Let me tell you a quick story. I was telling Kat how I was regaining weight after my 100-pound loss using GLP-1 medications, and I was having snacky cravings and waking up at 3 a.m., and I had hot flashes, and I was worried. But Kat was like, listen, I went through this last year. It's perimenopause, and I started HRT, and she used this company called Winona. So I started going there to see if this was something that was going with me. Turns out it was, because I'm 46. And it's been amazing. It's taken a while to find the right dose, but once I did, it's just been huge. I've been sleeping. I feel more myself again. And the hot flashes are gone, which is, geez, really bad. So I will tell you, it's just been so big for me. And so I wanted to partner with them on the podcast because obviously many of our listeners are going through this same age range and definitely are having these issues. And there's just no need for you to suffer. So if you go to the link that's in our link tree, you can click on that and save money. If you go there and you meet all the criteria, and this might be something for you to try. So I just want to make sure you had this great resource because it's just been such a big difference for me and Kat. Again, you can go to the link in our link tree and get what you need.
"20 seconds a week to lose 20% of your weight in a year with diet and exercise." That's the power of GLP-1s through Ro. Ro helps find the medication that's right for you, based on cost, availability, and your weight loss goals. Losing weight with GLP-1s is possible through Ro.
And for better or worse, right? Like, so I'm wondering, do you guys feel, I'm not totally hijacking like Keko next, do you guys feel like there's been progression in that way in terms of policy with the work that you've done where you think things are getting better?
There's been tremendous change. I've been working since I came to Texas over 10 years ago to try and get some kind of interest in policy around comprehensive treatment, coverage of comprehensive treatment. And this last year in the Texas legislature, finally, there was a group that ran with it, and a policy did get written and submitted, and it made it through committee hearings all the way to the House floor. It never got heard on the House floor, unfortunately. But now we're seeing some changes at the federal level too, and all these policy strategies kind of overlap and support each other. And what's happened is these GLP-1 receptor agonists that are now available are helping people think a little differently about obesity. Now that there's a drug that has such dramatic impact on weight, it's helping our healthcare system say, oh, maybe there is something we can do about this. But it's kind of a double-edged sword, because at the same time, it shouldn't just be write a script and that's the end of it, right? We know that
absolutely
hand in hand, first of all, the right medication needs to be prescribed to the right person. That prescription may need to change over time. The dose escalation is essential to get right. But hand in hand with that, you need all these other considerations around especially nutrition and physical activity to ensure that the weight that's being lost is focused on losing the fat while maintaining the lean mass. Right. Lead to lots of other kind of problems. You can have people that are malnourished because they're just not eating enough food. And the weight loss may feel great, but if you're losing your muscle mass, our muscles are not just to look good. They're to move us around. They're to keep our body in alignment so that when we move throughout the world, we're not, we're not having trouble with our joints. Our muscles help us breathe, help our heartbeat, help us control everything in our body. So we need to make sure that people are getting the right nutrition hand in hand with these new advanced treatments. These are powerful treatments that absolutely should be used, but they need to be used within our healthcare system with healthcare providers who are trained to do it and trained to provide all the wraparound services that go with it. And Dr. Drander may want to elaborate on that a little bit. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Michelle.
Just a few things. Perfect. What you said is absolutely perfect, and it's necessary. What the point that, just to a little bit elaborate, the point that you're making is when, say, a person says, I'm not on a diet, I'm eating 2,500, 3,000 calories in a day. I have a lot of scope to choose my nutrients, various nutrients, vitamin C, vitamin A, minerals, calcium, what have you, from those 3,000 calories. If I go on a GLP-1 type of medication, I'm not going to eat 3,000 calories anymore. I'll be eating maybe 1,000 calories, just making it.
Yeah,
I'll be eating 1,000 calories. Now my scope of getting all those nutrients has shrunk from 3,000 to 1,000.
Yeah.
I am very likely to not get good nutrients because my scope has reduced. We say that a perfect diet for weight loss is the one that provides all nutrients, essential nutrients, except calories. So it needs to be deficient only in calories, but it needs to provide everything, all other essential nutrients to a person.
Yeah.
That scope becomes less as a result. And then that can lead to the issues that Dr. Wiggum was talking about in muscle loss and other stuff. Mm-hmm. That's one. The other aspect of prescribing drug, what happens is many a times people who require these drugs have other conditions. They have diabetes, they have high blood pressure, or high cholesterol, or what have you. When you start losing weight, no matter whether you took medication, no medication, which medication, doesn't matter. Once you start losing weight, the requirements of other medications for other conditions change rapidly.
Right.
If you are on, say, insulin, you're taking insulin for diabetes or type 1 diabetes or type 2, but insulin. In a day or two, your insulin requirement will change. It will become less. That fast. It can change in a day or two. When I'm working with other providers who send me somebody for weight loss, I work with the provider saying, you are going to handle their insulin. You are going to handle their blood pressure medication. It's going to be revised in a couple of weeks or so. So this close monitoring is required for other conditions, which we call obesity management. So there is a difference between the word obesity management and weight loss. Mm-hmm. Weight loss is just one aspect of obesity management umbrella. Yes. Just like diabetes management is not only reducing your blood glucose levels, but also be worrying about your eye health, kidney health, skin health. All of that, plus reduction of glucose levels, is diabetes management. Same way, obesity management is required, not just weight loss.
Yes. So true. Oh, that's perfect. Kat, I'm not going to, I'm going to be quiet. You guys are quiet. I'm always quiet.
So in the interest of time, I really wanted to get to these questions. And currently I'm rereading, I don't know if you probably have read this, the Fearing the Black Body, the racial origins of fat phobia.
I'm a little familiar with it, but I haven't read it. Yes.
Well, join the book club. I'm kidding. But there was, it's a point from this book that I'm reading, that I'm just going to summarize it. And I really wanted to ask the panel here. I wanted to ask you guys and what your thoughts were, and what are the steps that you are taking, for the future generations of practitioners that are coming into your school, right? So it's a very thought-provoking book, and it's this assertion that the author Sabrina Strings writes in Fearing the Black Body. She made an argument that the modern medical and public health focus on weight is often framed purely as a matter of individual health, but rather she's asserting it's arguably a guise that obscures its deep historical roots in weight bias and racial moral anxieties. Let's talk. Basically, what she's saying is that the guise of health is really still, we're going back to weight bias and obesity bias.
So, yes, cultural fears about body size didn't arise in a vacuum. Weight stigma in our culture has long been intertwined with moral judgment, social control, all the things that she's talking about, according to your summary. And this history matters because it helps explain why people with obesity still experience so much shame and bias today. Oftentimes, even in healthcare settings, which is where they need to go to get the support and help that they need to achieve a healthier weight. And for decades, we've been framing obesity almost entirely as this personal failure, just eat less and move more. Yeah. And that framing overlaps with these moral and cultural biases.
Right. Yeah.
But today we understand that obesity is a chronic, relapsing disease. And that's a different framework. And that's how we need to focus as we've been talking through this whole discussion. Yeah. That's how we need to be focusing our energies, because that is how we are going to help people with obesity today receive the kind of treatment. So we need to make sure that this narrative, this stigma and bias doesn't keep people from getting access to high quality care. Right now, that needs to be our focus. All people, regardless of race, ethnicity, culture, socioeconomic status, need and deserve access to high quality treatment and care, which does include access to medications. It includes access to healthy and affordable food that can be part of the nutrition strategy that goes into the treatment program. It means access to active lifestyles so that they can, as they start to lose their weight, they can maintain their active lifestyles to help keep their body healthy and their muscle mass maintained and so forth. So it's all necessary, and we need to be reframing the discussion and addressing the stigma and the bias around obesity so that people's access to care does not get shut down. When you blame the person and you make it about what we've been talking about here, instead of treating it as a disease, then we shut down access to treatment, because not everyone has equal access to treatment. And so I think that's where we really need to be focusing our energy. And that's why, as we said, Dr. Durander and I have been putting a significant amount of energy in recent years into helping current healthcare providers, PCPs especially, but also we're working with different medical schools, training programs there. We even start at the undergraduate level. I mean, all of this training will hopefully help change what our healthcare system looks like moving forward. And when we talk to legislators, I talked to a lot of people at the Texas Capitol this past legislative session because this new bill was introduced. Yeah. And I spent a lot of time trying to help legislators understand the science of obesity rather than turning to the cultural norms they were used to hearing. This is just about behavior. If people behaved better, they wouldn't struggle with their weight. And we were lucky because we had some very influential people who had served important roles in Texas state government stand up and speak to this from their own personal experience as a person with obesity who had then undergone treatment that involved GLP-1 receptor agonists and what a difference that made. So these kind of stories that you all are telling, that you're helping other people tell, really matter too, because it puts that personal face on this disease and helps people who might still be carrying those those ancient cultural norms of blaming the individual helps them start to see it differently. So kudos to you both for all the good work you're doing in this area.
How do you see that with like say BMI and transitioning out of that? And also I really want to, because I know that you emphasized that you're teaching other PCPs and things of that nature, but you're also kind of shaping and forming a new class of recruits, a new generation of practitioners coming into the field. What are some of their are you I guess are you confronting biases like in that situation?
Absolutely.
Well? Okay.
Absolutely. Every class I teach on obesity, every provider I train, every conversation I have usually starts with a conversation around weight stigma and bias, that obesity is not caused by food. It's not caused by lack of willpower. It's not caused by lack of motivation. It's caused by these intrinsic factors we've been talking about today that drive that dysregulation of calories within our body. And we can't blame the individual for those causes, but the individual does have agency to change their weight and improve their health. But we need to work as a society to make sure at the individual level, those individuals who want to exercise that agency have access to the tools to do it and an environment that will support it. So it shouldn't be about blaming the individual. It should be about supporting the individual as a whole society and ensuring excellent access to those options.
Yeah, I love that. I think when we're thinking about what you guys are doing, I love it too. It's so refreshing to hear too, because like we're over here being like, just give us the medicine, because that's it's just like when you're on this journey in the beginning, like most of us are like diet culture and the scale, and then after that we're kind of like, maybe this doesn't matter as much as this. Maybe it's more about our overall health and our blood work and how we feel. Like this shift happens, right? But it's a lot of stuff to unwind. When we started like in this community and on TikTok and all these different things 3.5 years ago, what I found is that, we were having these conversations. Like first we were all doing less accountability stuff. I took my shot today. This is what I ate this week. This is how many pounds I lost, 0.2 pounds and 0.8 pounds. And like, that was the whole thing. And then at some point we got on and went, you guys really doing how you know what I mean? And then like from then we started having like these bigger discussions. At some point we had people like, I don't know if you've met Mike on a Mission yet, but Julie. Mike on a Mission is one of our advocates in our community. And he is very much driven on changing policy. And I think that what we've noticed, like with policy in general, is we've been working towards sort of changing the system, right? Or working within the system. We want to change. That's our motto for the podcast is let's get loud and change things. So if we're thinking about like the way that works, we're always trying to be like, okay, well, how can we work within this system? And the answer was, let's try for TROA, right? Again, after 10 years, like, let's try. Let's be a part of that. How do we help with that? How do we amplify that? How do we use the technology that we're all on from social to do that? And then all of a sudden, the system started to change. And it wasn't because of us. And I'm not really sure. I'm sure it has to do with money. 100% why. But what happened is the pharmacies started going around the PBMs and offering cash pay prices, And then now the president, right, is like, okay, now I'm going to have this pricing that I've negotiated for the next 2 years. And then also it's going to be negotiated for Medicare. And wait, now we're also going to allow those prices for Medicaid, because they knew what the number was that they needed to be able to do it, right? And then all these things change. So as an advocate, and that was where I love your advice, and like in the system, are we done? I don't know.
No.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, what is that? Because I feel like that was the needle we were trying to move, and now we've moved the needle. And from like a patient perspective, I'm like, for a patient advocacy, I don't know. What do we do next? You guys got any ideas?
Well, we need to keep advocating for coverage, because it's not just about Medicare or Medicaid. We need to make sure that does actually happen.
Yeah.
We'll, see if it actually comes about. Right. But think of all the people who are not covered on Medicare and Medicaid. We have a lot of, large and smaller insurance coverage plans through large employers. And we need those who make the decisions within these large employment systems to also decide we need to cover these medications for the members. That's the term they use, the employees that are part of that healthcare coverage plan.
Yeah.
And make sure they're clear by going to these PBMs or directly to the drug companies and negotiating these prices. You are helping everyone get the medication at a lower cost rather than having to go around that and pay the higher out-of-pocket costs. The drug companies want to have these conversations.
Yeah.
I hear from people working for the drug companies all the time. We want to have these conversations, but they won't have the conversation with us. They want more people to have access. And so we need those folks to also get on board. Hopefully, if Medicaid and Medicare start to cover it, some more of these large groups will start to fall in line. Yeah. And right now they're looking at a list price per person per month. That's not the price that would be negotiated if it was covered through a large plan.
Right.
And then they're making financial decisions based on that, just on what it would cost at that higher price. They're not taking into consideration the cost savings of keeping people from developing diabetes, heart disease, cancer, kidney disease, liver disease, missed days at work, decreased productivity.
Absolutely.
There's some really great reports that were written by an organization called Global Data that people can look into, where they looked at the economic impact of obesity, and they picked a handful of different states around the country, and they also looked at it nationally. And it shows the dollar impact on things like absenteeism from people who miss work because of the consequences of obesity. So we can't be blinded or short-sighted. Just this is what it's going to cost. We can't afford that. Instead, we need to say, this is what it costs today, but we're going to negotiate the price lower. So we're going to cover more people at a lower cost. That's going to lead to cost savings. And the more we can get this part of our system, a normal part of our system, the prices will come down. We also have some amazing newer drugs in the pipeline, and that's going to keep putting pressure on the market. And now our manufacturing systems are scaled up dramatically. We had a lot of supply chain shortages in the early days, and a lot of that has been addressed. There's oral versions of the medication coming out soon, and those oral medications don't require the pen. The pen and manufacturing of the pen has its own costs. You have to transport that drug, refrigerated and so forth. So there's a lot of changes. We need to keep pushing for this to ensure these changes make it across the finish line. Yeah. And then aside from just access to the drugs, we still need advocates talking about comprehensive care.
Yeah.
Those drugs are not going to work for everybody. Right. And there's a lot more than just taking the drug when it comes to addressing obesity. So we need to advocate for training healthcare professionals to better understand obesity management, nutrition, active lifestyles, and what the science really tells us there. We need to advocate that people get that kind of nutrition guidance when they're on these medications to ensure that they're losing weight in a healthy way, that they're not damaging other parts of their health as they go to achieve a healthier weight.
And it is
and
easy. It is easy to do.
Absolutely.
It really is. I wouldn't have admitted it years ago. I think it was just because I was so thrilled to just not be played out wise, right? But it for sure is very easy to be like, oops, I only ate 500 calories today.
Right.
It's very easy to be like, I totally forgot. Yeah. It really, for me, it was like my emotional relationship with food was just like that.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yes. But at the same time, I was like, how do I solve for my sadness? How do I solve for my happiness? How do I, I didn't know what to do with myself. Like there's so much there when your whole life, this has been the driver.
Yeah. Right. You make a good point. It needs to go hand in hand with the mental health support. Yeah,
absolutely. Which we already know that's the problem. So,
right. Yeah. Right.
And a couple of things about policy, in addition to this is actually the main focus of policy or policy change. But call it policy change of mind, so what have you. I think the other angles, other dimensions would be, which we talked about, is training providers. One one thing is about policy and use of medication. Other is training providers to be able to treat obesity in the right way.
Right.
Not just come back after 6 months and just walk more in. So that's the second thing. Third thing is people who are suffering from obesity need to be explained, which you both are doing on your program, is explain to them that there is nothing to be ashamed of. This is a real condition, a real disease, and better to go to a person, provider who knows about it than to go to your friend and get advice.
Right.
So that's number 3. And then there is this thing about how are we going to prevent expression of obesity? Right now, we have in the US alone about 180 million people who suffer from either overweight or obesity. So we need to take care of them, but also see if we can reduce the expression of obesity in other individuals. And on is what one other important thing that comes to my mind when not all policies are great. There are some I feel for sure that some things, yes, we should consider policy seriously, payment for obesity management treatment, of course. But then there are some policies that I feel are not the best. For example, for some people talk like things that work for smoking cessation will work for obesity.
Right.
And it is a completely different picture. When you talk about smoking cessation, when you're talking about stopping smoking, it is a binary choice. Smoke or don't smoke. It is not smoke a little bit of this brand of cigarette, then not a little bit of that. Only half of cigarette. And you can survive without smoking. You can't survive without food.
Right.
So smoking and food are two separate things, and they should not be brought together in policy because something worked for smoking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Second thing, and the last thing that in terms of policy, sometimes people want to make policies about taking a particular food away, and you name it, whatever that food is. It could be a soda, that certain size of soda should be taken away from the market with a naive hope that people will stop drinking, having those many calories. And what I like to call this scenario is digging a hole in water. Because you took away one food product, you are now naively expecting that those 300 calories are not going to get filled throughout the day. People will eat something else that will fill those calories. So these kind of policies are, they don't help obesity, they hurt obesity.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think too, there is like some things they're adding in terms of policy for treatments. Like you have to use our doctors, you have to be on our diet plan, you have to take pictures of your food. We need to measure your weight on a scale like every day. And I think that a lot of that could be very, very harmful for people who have struggled with this for a long time. There's got to be a way for people to understand the moderation piece and the mental health piece like together. And I think that's just really important. And I think if we're like, oh, these medicines plus diet culture, that's a huge freaking fail. That is a big mistake.
Yeah.
And so I think having a way with policy where it's not one size fits all, like you're talking about, or this equals best practice. And it's more, here are best practices we have seen, apply them and try them with the patient, and what works for them is what works for them should be the way forward. And like from a patient perspective. Yeah. Right.
Great.
Good talk, guys. Yes. Wow. This was amazing. Any closing statements?
Just so, again, kudos to you for doing this great work and getting the word out there. You're reaching a lot of people, and that's really important. We all need to work together. We're busy working on the science and the policy and the translation of the science into practice. And, it really helps to have your voices elevating other patient voices so that it all goes hand in hand. So thanks for all that you're doing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We can back up what we talk about. We have you all.
Yeah.
That's what we always said in the beginning. We were like, we're going to talk about these stories so we can move your heart, but we're going to talk about the facts, science, and data to validate why this is all happening. Because it's important.
Great. That's great.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We'll make sure to put all the links of where people can go to follow you more, whether it's LinkedIn or any kind of socials that you may have or books that you have. Like, we're going to make sure that's all in there so people can if they have more.
Super.
All right.
Super. Thank you.
Oh my God.
Answer your question about that. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank you so much.
Let me tell you a quick story. I was telling Kat how I was regaining weight after my 100-pound loss using GLP-1 medications, and I was having snacky cravings and waking up at 3 a.m. and I had hot flashes, and I was worried. But Kat was like, listen, I went through this last year. It's perimenopause, and I started HRT, and she used this company called Winona. So I started going there to see if this was something that was going with me. Turns out it was, because I'm 46. And it's been amazing. It's taken a while to find the right dose, but once I did, it's just been huge. I've been sleeping. I feel more myself again, and the hot flashes are gone, which is, geez, really bad. So I will tell you, it's just been so big for me. And so I wanted to partner with them on the podcast because obviously many of our listeners are going through this same age range and definitely are having these issues. And there's just no need for you to suffer. So if you go to the link that's in our link tree, you can click on that and save money. If you go there and you meet all the criteria, and this might be something for you to try. So I just want to make sure you had this great resource because it's just been such a big difference for me and Kat. Again, you can go to the link in our link tree and get what you need. Today's episode is brought to you by Ro, a telehealth platform that's changing the game of GLP-1 access. What sets Ro apart? Ro understands the challenges of navigating insurance hurdles and the skyrocketing prices of GLP-1 medications. That's why they specialize in getting insurance approvals for GLP-1s. And if insurance is a barrier, they go a step further by prescribing brand name zepbound vials for prices close to those of compound GLP-1s. With Ro, you're not just getting a prescription, you're getting a partner in your journey that's helping you access affordable treatment and guiding you every step of the way. Whether it's insurance approvals or cost-effective alternatives, Ro is here to make sure that you get the medication you need. Visit ro.co/plussides with a Z today to see how they can help you take control of your weight management journey with affordable, accessible care. That's ro.co/plussides with a Z, making healthcare work for you. Check out the link in our show notes for more details.
Are you interested in understanding GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, or Mounjaro? Then join us on the Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, the groundbreaking podcast helping people change their lives one episode at a time. The Plus Sides podcast is a disruptor. We're breaking down barriers, smashing stereotypes, and sharing inspiring stories that'll leave you feeling informed and empowered. Join us every week to learn from doctors who are specialists around GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, and Mounjaro. They'll provide you with science and facts to validate these incredible stories. But that's not all. We'll also bring you the voices of the GLP-1 Mounjaro TikTok community, real people who face the challenges of obesity-related diseases and disorders and discovered the incredible plus sides of GLP-1 medications. Our episodes are filled with heartwarming stories, laughter, and moments of triumph. You'll connect with our amazing community members who are reclaiming their health and experiencing their fullest lives. Are you ready to embark on a journey of discovery and empowerment? Tune in to the Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, and together we'll change the narrative around obesity and end the stigma. Subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform and join our incredible community. Let's celebrate the plus sides of life together because every story deserves to be heard. Every life deserves to shine, and everyone deserves access to expert knowledge and medication. The Plus Sides Podcast. You're not alone. It's not your fault.